My name is Karud, otherwise known as Madame Tartempion on the social media networks. I am a Chief Marketing Officer in the luxury and cosmetics field, and I've lived in Paris over the course of about 22 years with back and forths between the US and Paris. Today I'm going to be telling you my Paris story. I recently got my French citizenship after many years and a lot of submitting and resubmitting paperwork, etc. This has been a long, drawn-out process and quite an emotional one for me as well, because France is my chosen and adopted country and I feel very close to the French culture. So for me, getting my citizenship is quite a big deal. When I finally got awarded the French citizenship, it was just simply by an email saying very factually, "Your request has been granted." Thank you very much. On the opposite side, my husband, who's French, got his American citizenship several years ago. And when he got it, it was like, literally they had like this big giant party, fireworks afterwards, everyone was waving American flags. It was like a party, and it was like welcoming the American citizens, the new American citizens, to the country. And in France, it was just a lot more factual, a lot more dry, a lot more like, yeah, no, you're French, like, congrats, I guess. And even when I went to pick up my paperwork at the préfecture to finally get like my passport and everything like that, I was crying. And the lady who was giving it to me was like, "Are you well?" And I was like, it's just emotional for me. She's like, "Okay, well, here's your paperwork." How did you move to Paris? I initially moved to Paris on a study abroad program because I was doing my undergrad degree in Romance languages, and my level of Spanish was already quite good, and so I needed to compensate by studying in a Francophone country. So I didn't have a particular reason to move to Paris other than to study the language, and I ended up falling in love with Paris, and I've stayed here now for 22 years. Do you have a favorite spot in Paris? Well, my favorite neighborhood is Montmartre, but there's a specific spot in Montmartre which I absolutely love. It's behind the Sacré-Cœur. Most tourists actually miss it. It's called Square Turlure, and you have a beautiful view on the backside of the Sacré-Cœur, which is, in my opinion, one of the prettiest monuments in Paris. Is Paris easy to navigate? Yes, actually, I think it is. When I first moved here in 2004, this is before smartphones, this is before having a Google map in your pocket, it was recommended to us to purchase what is called a Paris Pratique, which is a small little foldable map. I kept that in my bag all the time, and again, because you don't have smartphones in 2004, if you're waiting for the bus, if you're waiting for the metro, if you're bored, what I would do is just pull out the map and study the map. I got really good at navigating the Paris streets really quickly. There's another couple of tips that I always give visitors about the Paris streets. You have the odd building numbers on one side of the street, you have the even numbers on the other side of the street. The city was actually just designed specifically for that reason. They get increasingly large as you get away from the Seine. So that helps you sort of direct where you are in relation to the Seine, or actually the center point, which is on the Parvis de Notre-Dame, which is in front of the Notre Dame Cathedral. So that's the kilomètre zéro, which is the center point of Paris. And the farther you get out from that, the larger the street numbers get. Another little tip that you might not necessarily know ahead of time, but if you come to Paris, you'll see that some of the buildings say bis. So like it will be building number 14 and then building 14 bis, sometimes even 14 terre. That means that buildings have been built in between, say, 14 and 16. So they have to sort of insert a building A, building B. So that's what that means. A lot of the streets and a lot of the squares and a lot of the areas of Paris are named after famous people or in homage to certain people. Recently, they've been trying to add in a lot more female figures because for a long time it was mostly males that were part of the infrastructure. So I'm glad to see that happening, but it does mean that some of the streets change from time to time. So yes, the 2004 Paris Pratique is no longer valid. What was your viral French moment? I don't know if I had like a particular viral moment, but I have had a couple of very popular videos that you can call them viral. One was doing a comparison between the way that I did my makeup when I lived in the US versus the way that I do my makeup when I now live in France. Because I work in the cosmetics field, that's something of interest to me. That went super viral, and there was lots of comments, both positive and negative, as you can imagine. And then I had another really popular post that was really silly. It was just me walking from the Metro Line 4 all the way to the quai of the platform of the trains in the Montparnasse station. Walking from the metro all the way to the train station, you have to like go up the stairs and then down the stairs and all of these winding corridors. They say that the most direct line between 2 points is a straight line. Well, this is like the total opposite. You feel like you're winding through a maze to get from point A to point B. It just is kind of, it seems counterproductive to me, but I guess a lot of people thought that was funny, or they resonated with it, or they have had really bad experiences in Montparnasse station, and so that went viral. I love Monoprix. It's great. It's a great place to get home decor. It's a great place to get, I don't know, toiletries. You can get really nice clothes there, surprisingly, and of course your groceries. The closest thing in the US to me is a Target, because that's also where you can get toiletries and home decor and towel. It's an easy shortcut to tell Americans it's kind of like the Target of France. Wow, the comments that I got about that was like, there's no way, Target is way better, what are you talking about, the quality is so much better, blah blah. And then I had other people who were like, this is crazy, Target is amazing, Target has way better selection, blah blah. So it's like, mettez-vous d'accord déjà, like agree before you like send the hate my way. Anyway, I got a lot of comments on that for sure. What gave you culture shock? If you're in customer service, which I have worked in customer service both in the US and in France, if you're in customer service, the idea is that the customer is always right. That's literally what we are taught. That is what we grow up around in our culture. The expectation is, well, if a customer comes in and they need to return something or they are unhappy with something, the customer service staff will do whatever it takes to make the customer happy. That is not exactly the customer service point of view in France. There's definitely a level of politeness and trying to help the customer, but they're not just going to take the customer service to the extreme degree of the customer is always right. Sometimes the customer is wrong, and that's okay. What's a big no-no in France? As Americans, myself included, we will start an interaction with "excuse me," which is the polite way to start a conversation if you are interacting with someone that you don't know. If you start a conversation in French by saying like "excusez-moi" instead of saying "bonjour, excusez-moi," you might get a little bit of a side eye. It's something I actually just realized recently, that I was still starting some of the conversations with like "excusez-moi," and then the French person would come back to me and be like "bonjour," like you missed it. Sorry, excusez-moi. What's a stigma that American people feel in France? The French will look at American enthusiasm and they will call that hypocritical. We're just operating on different cultural scales. So the French scale, if you can imagine, like the French scale of showing enthusiasm is like right here. This is like no reaction whatsoever, and this is quite enthused, whereas Americans are like off the French scale. So I understand both perspectives, but it does kind of hurt my heart when French people think that we're being inauthentic. That's just the way that we are brought up to express ourselves is on a different scale. How long did it take you to learn French? I was a French language student before I actually moved to France, but only for about 2 years. By some mistake, I got integrated into the program at La Sorbonne with regular French students. My level was not nearly good enough to keep up with them. For the first 2 weeks, I went to class and I think I cried every single day because I had no idea what they were saying. And when I went to go and explain that to the administration of the school, I don't think even my French was good enough to explain to them what was going on. And so they had a very French reaction, which was, so I wasn't able to actually move out of those classes. I was like, okay, I have to learn French immediately or I will fail my classes and then I will lose my scholarship. I spent my time only with French students and made a group of French friends, and that was the best way through immersion, was the best way for me to learn French quickly. So I would say I went from a very basic level to fluency in about 6 months. How's your French now compared to when you first moved? My French now is bilingual. I actually had to do a test, it's called the DALF, last year as part of my citizenship process. I have a C2 plus level, which is legally considered bilingual. However, I make mistakes all the time. I still make mistakes all the time because I only started learning French when I was 19 years old. I don't have those 19 years of language learning that a lot of people do when they grow up learning a language. What's the most helpful advice you received in French? Well, this isn't going to be like a language trick. It's just going to be how to get fluent quickly, and that would be to get yourself a French partner. I really hate that as a piece of advice, but it worked really well for me. I've been happily married for the past 13 years, but before that, I was spending time with a lot of French boyfriends and French friends. And they tend to have a level of patience for your language that they help you along because there's a vested interest in being able to understand each other. So immersion, spending time with French people as much as possible is the best way to practice your language skills. You will make 1,000 mistakes and that's okay. If they're your friends, they'll help correct you, they'll be nice and they'll be patient with you. And that's the best way to learn language, in my opinion, is practice. What's the most confusing thing about the French language? For me, it's still the masculine and feminine nouns, the articles. There's no rule, or there might be some rules, but then there's so many exceptions to those rules that they basically don't even exist. The only way to know if it's masculine or feminine is through repetition. And there's still certain words that I hesitate, even though I've said this word 1,000 times, I still hesitate. Is it le or la? One trick is to just make it plural and just say les. If you go to a bakery and you can't remember if it's le baguette or la baguette, just ask for deux baguettes, s'il vous plaît. Why would you recommend learning French to people? Well, certainly if you are planning on living in France, living in Paris, I can't imagine surviving here a long time. No. I think that you can survive here without speaking a great level of French. However, you'll be missing out on so many opportunities, so many connections, so much cultural context that you can really only get if you do speak the language. If you want to have a full, deep experience with your time in France or in Paris, learning the language is absolutely the best way to go. And I am so grateful. I mean, I'm a language learner. I did my undergrad in languages, but it'll be a lifelong pursuit to fully grasp and enjoy the French language. My top 3 neighborhoods that I would choose to live in would be number 1, Montmartre, or actually more specifically, the backside of Montmartre. I had the opportunity to live there for a few years, and I think that being close enough to the Hill, which is one of my favorite neighborhoods, it's one of my favorite places to visit, but you're out of the main tourist mass, is really, really enjoyable. I absolutely love that neighborhood. There's a great local vibe. Number 2 is the area around the Canal Saint-Martin. There's a fantastic amount of restaurants and cafes and shops, and again, really local vibe. In the summertime, it's wonderful to see everyone out along the canal. I wouldn't live on the canal necessarily because people tend to party until late into the night, so that would be kind of loud, but in the area around is really, really enjoyable. Love the Canal Saint-Martin. Another area that I really love is the area sort of east of Bastille. So on the west, you have the Marais, and then you have the Place de la Bastille, and sort of the area just east of that, Rue de la Roquette, Rue Charonne. Really great restaurants, shops, and really fun local vibe. I hoped you enjoyed hearing about my Paris story with Street French.